I didn't think we'd ever be talking about this guy again. Never. Because, for some reason, he was a flash in the pan that had a moment in the playoffs and we all thought he was the king of the world. And then he just kind of faded down the lineup into obscurity. People were like, yeah, who was that guy that did that thing in the Game 7 against Colorado? Oh yeah, it's that guy. Today we are talking about Joel Kiviranta. And I'm not going to say the blank, and I'll let the Finnish commentators go out there and say that for me. Today we are talking about Kiviranta because yesterday he had signed a PTO, a professional tryout contract, with the Colorado Avalanche. And this is a pretty intriguing piece of news when you consider his history as a hockey player and what actually put him on the map in the first place. Now, Kiviranta's name, if you wanted to go by popularity, if you wanted to go by hype, by word of mouth, back when this guy was a prospect, quote-unquote, he was like nothing really special in the eyes of many NHL prospect watchers or whatever. He was a player in Finland, playing for Jokerit, playing for the Vasan Sport, both in the Liga. He was not really all too amazing. He was undrafted. He was never really a guy that had a super high level of attention. But in 2016-ish, this is when Joel Kiviranta, who is right now, he's 27 years old, 5'11", 185, left wing, left-handed guy. In the 2016-ish era of his career, playing for Vasan and the Sport team, he started to produce a few points here and there. Now, the Sport were not great. They were one of the worst teams in the Liga in this time frame, but you had Kiviranta who was still going out there and producing. This culminated with a career high of 37 points in 59 games played. 2017-18, that was 5 years ago, so he was 22 years old. The season after, Kiviranta had 31 points in 48 games played, 23 at this time frame. He plays for Team Finland at the World Championships. He impresses, and he gets himself a contract with the Dallas Stars. Now, the thing with Kiviranta and his NHL North American debut was that he did spend the majority of his time with Texas, the AHL team. 23 points, 48 games played, not amazing, but not too bad either. He gets a call-up to play with the Dallas Stars, and he scores a goal in 11 games played. But then, once the postseason comes along, this is where things get crazy. Because in the 2020 bubble playoffs, the Dallas Stars went to the Stanley Cup Finals, and that was a pretty big deal, seeing as they had a bunch of things to fight for and a bunch of players that needed that cup ring. And for Kiviranta, he was the guy that initially didn't play for Dallas to kick off that playoff run. He was a part of the Black Aces. He didn't play hockey for 9 months because of the virus and everything shutting down, and he's only with the team as that extra option. And when Game 7 in the second round against the Colorado Avalanche comes along, the Dallas Stars are forced to sit out Andrew Cogliano, the Iron Man of the NHL, the guy who ended up having the Game 7 opportunity taken away from him because he was injured. And so, Joel Kiviranta is some random guy that's playing in Texas for most of the year. He's part of the Black Aces. He makes his playoff debut with the Stars in Game 7, the biggest game of his life, and the guy scores a hat trick in overtime. He scores the game-tying goal with 3 minutes to go in the third period, and then in OT, he gets the pass out in front and buries it to send the Avalanche to the conference finals. Now, the rest is history. From there, the Dallas Stars beat the Golden Knights, they went to the finals, they lost to Tampa Bay, but Kiviranta had himself a playoffs for the ages when you acknowledge just how everything went down. He played the rest of the entire playoffs for Dallas and ultimately earned himself a full-time spot with the team in the next little while. But Kiviranta literally came out of nowhere. And to help us out, we're going over onto this Ken Campbell article back from 2020 titled this, Who the Blank is This Guy? Stars hero Joel Kiviranta, that is who. The article goes out there and gives an entire scouting report as to what Kiviranta had been through and how he came out into the Dallas Stars system. This is what Rick Bowness said back in this time frame. Wherever he played him, we always had a ton of confidence in him. There was a game in Colorado I remember earlier in the year when we brought him up, and I remember Joe Pavelski tapping me and saying, Bones, give me that guy as a line mate. The players have a tremendous amount of confidence in Kivi. He's undaunted by anything out there. He's not intimidated by one thing. He's a great little competitor. Are we surprised at the hat trick? Yeah. Did we expect that kind of effort, though? Yeah. That's what we saw when we played him earlier in the year. The end of this article also talks about how his teammates say he's a really funny guy, one of the funnier Finns on the team, and ultimately, the article concludes here, if Kiviranta keeps having an impact on the Stars' playoff fortunes, perhaps we'll learn a little bit more about him. To be sure, he has earned a spot in the lineup when the Stars open the Western Conference Finals Sunday. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, I'll admit that, but there's a pretty good chance he'll be in our lineup for our next game. I'll talk to him tonight and let him know that. Yeah, you're playing. And he did. He ended up playing the rest of the playoffs, and he had this storied career that was pretty okay, but not too amazing. I mean, this is where things sort of went down, because Kiviranta was suffering from a few injuries here and there. He only played 26 games in 2020-2021. Sure, he had 11 points in that sample, but as you had seen his role in the lineup diminish over the years, he went from 11 points in 26 games to 7 points in 56 games to 9 points in only 70 games. Now, to Kiviranta's credit, he produced a lot in the playoffs this previous year. 5 points in 15 games, a point every 3 games. That's a lot more projectable over 82 to being more in line with NHL production, but Kiviranta really just didn't have a role with Dallas towards this part of the season. In fact, if you go over to Kiviranta and his Dobber Prospects report, June 2022 says, playing almost a full season with Dallas, Kiviranta has been a solid option to slot into the bottom 6 when needed, providing a decent defensive game and making an effort offensively too. Realistically, he won't slot in much higher in the lineup in upcoming seasons, but as his bottom 6 game develops, it's expected he'll be somewhat of a mainstay on the NHL roster, writes Aaron Itovich. Then you had yourselves the report from this season. Halfway through 22-23, and Kiviranta has been a very solid player for the Stars. He has spent most of his time on the 4th line, but occasionally finds himself slotting in on the 2nd or 3rd line. He is not an offensive threat, but his defensive metrics are very impressive. The Stars have been in top 5 of the NHL for their PK, and Kiviranta is a huge part of that, even creating and scoring shorthanded chances. He brings an energetic force to his line and is not afraid to be physical despite his size. Written by Taylor Newby. So here's the thing with Kiviranta. If you give this guy offensive chops, he's gonna do well, and he has an effort level that allows him to stay in the NHL even if he's not producing points and sticking around in the bottom 6 role. This guy's versatile, he's good defensively, and he's going over to a Colorado team with no money attached. It's only a PTO. He is just going on there as a tryout. And you had yourselves the reaction of many Avalanche fans just kind of freaking out saying, wait a minute, why do we get this guy? It kind of sucks, but it kind of rules at the same time. Here's a tweet from Peter Bowe that had a lot of people just kind of laughing. The Avs are bringing in Kiviranta on a PTO. He had 9 points in 70 games for Dallas last year and brings another option to the forward group. If you may recall, Kiviranta once had a Game 7 hat trick in a playoff series. And all the quote tweets, all the replies are like, yeah, we remember, we were a great team in 2020, and it was spoiled in Game 7 because this guy came out of nowhere and scored a hat trick. Kiviranta may not have himself the best NHL career, but he's got a career nonetheless. And it's one of these things where it seems more so like a funny trivia answer 10 years down the line where you think, hey, who's the guy that scored a hat trick to eliminate Colorado in 2020? Oh yeah, bubble playoffs, that was Kiviranta. And a few years later, now he is on the team on a PTO. Not guaranteeing anything here, of course, a PTO is just a PTO. He could fail to impress in training camp and end up getting cut from the team, but when it comes to the way this guy has been able to persevere and grow over the past few years, I would not be surprised if Kiviranta found himself a full-time NHL spot next year as a bottom 6 versatile replacement top 6 option once in a while with Colorado. It's just so poetic how everything comes around this way. So, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Kiviranta signing a PTO, with the Colorado Avalanche? If you're an Avs fan, how does this make you feel? Do you feel ticked off that this is the guy coming over, or are you more on the optimistic, funny side? Hey, this is funny. Like, this is kind of the best thing to ever happen with this team because they're exercising their demons and bringing over the guy that killed their playoff chances in 2020 onto their team this time. Dallas fans, how does this make you feel? What are your thoughts on Kiviranta as a player, how he's grown, and how he has progressed since the 2020 Game 7 miracle? I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.